I'm Phil Boyer, president of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, better known as just AOPA. Our sister organization, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, in conjunction with the FAA, holds some 300 safety seminars each year in the United States. We speak to thousands of pilots. However, this video is a unique and new attempt to reach some of you who haven't been able to attend these seminars. Under a generous grant from AOPA with postage provided by FAA, this video is being sent free of charge to you and thousands of instrument-rated pilots. It's a more cost-effective way to spread the safety message. You know, we can talk to 5 times as many pilots for the same cost as a seminar. This video is filled with real-world tips about how to use your IFR skills within the air traffic control system and to deal safely with thunderstorms and other challenging weather. AOPA is proud to sponsor this Air Safety Foundation video. IFR, ATC, and you.
Center, Aerostar 31 Hotel. We're painting some weather on our radar. We'd like to deviate 20 degrees to the right.
Aerostar 31 Hotel, deviation approved.
Get ready to kick in those swap routes. The convective activity to the northwest looks like it's about to disrupt the flow into Dulles and Nashville.
Center, United 483. We're getting a rough ride here. Any chance of higher?
United 483, account crossing traffic. Expect higher in 20 miles.
Convective activity is popping up. Or maybe there's ice in the clouds. Or low ceilings. Can you get through it safely? Or should you be on the ground waiting out the weather? As an instrument-rated pilot, these are questions you've got to be able to answer. Hi, I'm Jeff Baker. If skies were always clear, pilots wouldn't need instrument ratings below the flight levels. But IFR conditions are a fact of flying. It affects everyone, from the GA pilot to the senior airline captain. As a newly rated instrument pilot, you now have the authority to fly into conditions that would have kept you on the ground before. The first few times you find yourself in the clouds with convective activity in the forecast, a cockpit can feel like the loneliest place in the world. But IFR flight is a team effort, even if you're by yourself in the airplane. It involves everyone from the pre-flight briefers you speak to on the ground to the key players you work with while en route, air traffic controllers, or ATC.
Cherokee 88 Alpha, suggest a deviation of 30 degrees right.
This is the Washington Air Route Traffic Control Center, or ARTCC, in Leesburg, Virginia. It's an early summer afternoon, and that means air mass thunderstorms are going to be firing up. Air mass thunderstorms aren't associated with any front, and that's what makes them so unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Every part of the country has its own weather idiosyncrasies. In this area, it's the orographic lifting over the Appalachians that keeps things interesting. It can fire up a thunderstorm just about any afternoon in the summer, and snow showers in winter. When you're flying IFR through conditions like this, or any hazardous weather, ATC can help you stay out of the nasty stuff, spotting returns, providing vectors around weather, passing along pilot reports. But the fact is, there's no magic wand here on the ground to get you through bad weather, or even see where it is all the time. That's why you need to know about weather and about the capabilities and limitations of the ATC system to be a safe, effective IFR pilot. This presentation covers key elements in the planning and execution, the strategic and tactical phases of IFR flight that all PICs should practice. Like the pilots we'll meet here shortly, they're planning a trip from here at Dulles International Airport to Bradford, Pennsylvania in a Beech Debonair. In a short while, we'll follow their flight and see how they deal with the challenges of IFR flight through skies percolating with convective activity. Of course, flight planning starts well before you get to the airport. It starts a few days before with a look at long-range forecasts, and ends with a briefing just before scheduled departure. This is the strategic part of flight planning, getting all the relevant information about the weather conditions, the raw material that goes into making the go, no-go decision. That's really the essence of the strategic part of flight planning. First, deciding if it's safe enough to fly, and if so, determining the flight profile you plan to fly, route, altitude, and time of flight. Whether you're a new instrument pilot or an ATP, good strategic flight planning requires answering the same 4 basic questions. What's the big picture like, the system driving the weather? Are there any hazardous conditions I need to know about right off the bat? What is happening right now along my route? And what, as best as we can figure, will the weather be doing when we propose making our flight? The strategic process starts with the big picture. This is derived from a daily look at the Weather Channel. Here you can track the progress of weather systems well in advance of your flight. You'll have a general idea of what the weather will be doing on any given day. Then, as takeoff time approaches, you can use other sources to provide detailed information. Many pilots supplement their big picture with information from online sources, such as DUAT's or AOPA's website. Here you can get surface analyses, forecast graphics, radar and satellite imagery, and of course, text. Text provides detailed information while graphics fill in the gaps to form a complete picture. Armed with this information, a call to flight service adds another layer of information. You'll get a briefing for your route and the latest PIREPs and NOTAMs. Some pilots like to file their flight plan at this time. Others prefer online filing.
Good morning. This is Debonair 1588 Sierra. I'll be flying IFR from Dulles to Bradford, Pennsylvania with departure in about 3 hours, and I'd like to get a standard briefing for the route.
That's a lot of information to keep track of, so it's best to have some sort of system to record it. Air Safety Foundation flight plan forms divide the weather briefing into sections that cover each weather question. It's an ideal template for gathering the information you need to make strategic decisions. Here's the bad stuff we want to know about right away. Adverse conditions, the big picture, the synopsis, and current and forecast weather. And the better you are filling up all this nice white space with information, the better you'll be able to create a 4-dimensional picture of the weather, not only in space, but in time, how it's changing, and how fast. When you get a briefing, the briefer types in your departure point and destination, and the computer automatically brings up the weather for departure, destination, and route, along with current and forecast conditions. This is called a CAVORIS system. Briefers can see showers and convective activity on it. The weather images are almost live. There's about an 8-minute delay. It's not as good as live radar, but that's coming down the line. Briefers summarize all the surface observations from reporting stations within 25 miles of the route. The route parameters are preset in the computer. The parameters can be changed, too, expanded out to 50 miles on either side of the route, for example. Briefers also have area forecasts and weather radar imagery at their disposal. But how do you know if the forecasts are accurate? Pilots need a way to validate the predictions. That's why determining current conditions is one of the 4 keys to a good briefing. Not only conditions along the route, but more important, where's the bad stuff now?
Yes, well, if that weather's moving in from the west, where's the leading edge at this time?
Current conditions provide a base for comparison, either with later briefings or weather encountered en route. Are conditions deteriorating as predicted? Are areas of ground fog persisting longer than expected? Today, our pilots want to know how things are progressing in Cleveland, Toledo, Columbus, and Dayton. That's where the weather has to pass before it reaches Bradford. Compare the METARs and TAFs, the hourly sequence of forecasts for the airports. Did the weather appear on time as forecast, or did it arrive early or late? Getting this information will give you a better picture of the weather and how it's likely to affect your route. You may be flying into areas where weather has already arrived, or taking off into a low overcast on a drizzly day. You still want to look beyond your route. Where's the front of the high-pressure system behind it? or how far on one side or the other of your route. If it's more than 2 hours before departure time, briefers aren't required to give current en route weather, but ask for it when IFR or marginal conditions are forecast to prevail. Next, you'll want a final look at the weather just before takeoff. Many FBOs provide terminals such as this one, where you can get the same information you got at home. Although this is a supplemental briefing, make sure you take a good look. For most pilots, it's the last time they'll have graphical information before they land. Something to keep in mind anytime you're getting radar images off the web. Get the national composite image first, before you look at individual radar sites. That way you'll be suspicious if an individual site doesn't show weather you saw on the national composite. But raw information isn't going to help unless you know what it means. You've got to be able to interpret as well as acquire the information. You've got to develop a three-dimensional view of the weather because so much of it is influenced by what's happening in the upper atmosphere. Be aware when you start your preliminary weather planning that the Weather Channel and weather maps in newspapers are only concerned with surface weather. If you want a real synopsis of what's going on, you have to know what's happening at altitude too. We know that upper-level winds generally flow from west to east. But the winds don't flow in a straight line. In some places, the flow swings south, in others, north. The flows that swing south are upper atmosphere troughs. The ones that swing north are upper atmosphere ridges. These curves affect the weather going on underneath them. An upper-level trough tends to make the weather underneath worse, and a ridge tends to bring good weather. The best source of information on upper air movement is the 500 millibar or 18,000-foot chart. It clearly shows the airflow pattern at altitude that's affecting the weather below. Without upper air support, such as a trough, surface lows may be relatively calm. A trough can also bring clouds and precip to an area that shows no frontal activity on the surface charts. To make sense of all this and understand how changing atmospheric conditions may affect their flights, instrument pilots have to be part-time meteorologists. Well, admittedly, most pilots don't care anything about meteorology. All we care about is answering the question, can I make it? Can I get where I'm going? Well, that's something that no briefer can tell you, because even if they know the weather, they don't know the capabilities or limitations of you as a pilot or your aircraft. That's why you have to be able to interpret meteorological information for yourself. Making the right go, no-go decision on the ground is important. Even more important is continued evaluation of that decision in flight. Here, the challenge is deciding whether to continue, divert, or return. Our flight crew was certainly prepared for the challenge. After determining conditions supported a go flight decision, they came to the airport ready for the tactical portion of their plan.
Okay, what's the latest on the weather?
Conditions are about the same, marginal all along the route. 3 to 5 in haze most of the way, and the forecast calls for the possibility of thunderstorms in the area until 2300 Zulu.
So what else is new?
Yeah, briefer says they're starting to get some returns west to Cleveland, and it's moving in our direction.
If ceilings and visibility are high enough, we could always go VFR. That way we'll be able to see the rain shafts. If we get up high enough, we'll be able to see the buildups and go around them. I don't know, though. I don't like that 3 to 5 mile viz, though. We're going to be doing more than 2 miles a minute over the ground.
Yeah, you're right, but we don't want to file IFR and then be stuck in solid clouds either. Kind of tough to see the weather that way. Now, the tops are running up to 12,000 now, and thunderstorms will be even higher. Good news is the ceilings are broken. So if we file for 10,000, we may be in the tops from time to time, but at least we should be able to eyeball the nasty stuff.
Right you are. What about the freezing level?
Yeah, good question. Let's see, 17,000 is the lowest it gets.
Okay. Sounds good to me. It's definitely going to be cooler up there. And we'll be able to avoid most, if not all, of the haze. Now, if I can just keep us out of those clouds with hard edges, well, we should have a pretty good ride.
Let's analyze the key elements of their planning.
I don't know, though. I don't like that 3 to 5 mile viz, though. We're going to be doing more than 2 miles a minute over the ground.
What's the relation of speed to weather avoidance? Of course, it can help you avoid the weather. If the forecasts are correct, their debonair will be safely tied down before the weather hits, while a Cub flying the same route would probably find the convective activity blocking its path. But when you're trying to dodge weather and deviate around buildups, speed can make maneuvering around what you see more difficult. Consider speed and maneuverability when formulating your plans. And you always have the option of pulling back the power and reducing cruise speed. Remember, as in VFR, see and avoid is the best anti-collision strategy for dealing with convective activity.
Now the tops are running up to 12,000 now, and thunderstorms will be even higher. Good news is the ceilings are broken. So if we file for 10,000, we may be in the tops from time to time, but at least we should be able to eyeball the nasty stuff.
Right you are. Oh, what about the freezing level?
The Mark I eyeball remains the best weather avoidance tool aboard any GA aircraft. Pilots should try to fly at altitudes where they can see the weather. But sometimes, cumulus clouds can build faster than you can climb. You'll need a plan if you can't stay on top. And if you fly high enough, you may run into the freezing level. You'll need an exit strategy if there's a chance of encountering icing. Know where the freezing level is, even if it's nowhere near your cruising altitude. It can help indicate whether a thunderstorm is likely to produce hail by its relation to the cloud tops. If there is a possibility of hail, avoid flying under anvils. This will generally involve deviation to the southwest, but make sure to give that side of the storm a wide berth, because that's the quadrant where the tornadoes form. And what did our pilot mean about clouds with hard edges? A cloud's appearance can help indicate its character. The harder the edges, the nastier the ride. For example, stratus clouds, characterized by their flat, layered look, indicate smooth air, with the downside of poor visibility because of lack of air circulation. Cumulus are marked by vertical development. If the edges are wispy and indistinct, the ride will be bumpy, but not hazardous. Cumulus clouds on their way to becoming thunderstorms can build at more than 3,000 feet per minute and can give a very rough ride. Hard cauliflower edges and defined anvil tops are characteristics of the turbulent cumulonimbus, definitely a cloud to be avoided. As is this, an altocumulus standing lenticular cloud, only found in mountainous areas, usually on the lee side of a range. These have the hardest edges of all clouds and indicate extreme turbulence, especially below the cloud. What about flying the route VFR? Does that seem out of the question on a day like today? With isolated cells developing, the see and avoid method of making sure you don't collide with a thunderstorm can work out, and it's perfectly legal, especially if, as an instrument pilot, you're prepared to get an IFR clearance if conditions require it. But filing IFR for an altitude that will keep you out of most of the clouds is even better. Now, with a forecast like this, some pilots would have scrubbed the mission before planning ever got this far. Making that call is part of what being PIC is all about. Make sure you know what's waiting at the other end of the flight, too. Review approaches before you leave the ground so you know what to expect. A 600-foot ceiling can be a piece of cake if there's an ILS, but a non-precision approach may result in a miss.
Okay, I filed via Martinsburg, then Victor 501 Phillipsburg, and Victor 265 Bradford Direct. So if we leave within the hour, we should be able to stay ahead of the weather. Or we can always deviate to the east if the weather develops sooner than forecast.
They have an ILS to runway 32 with minimums of 250 and half mile. And a VOR to 14, and that's 401 mile.
Yeah, so either way, we'll get a crosswind.
Yeah, that's the story of my life. Well, let's see. Cleveland Center handles the approach. You know, it looks like the airway is pretty much in alignment with the final approach course, so they should be able to give us a straight in.
Yeah, and if we're working weather, there's a DME arc to final there.
Uh-huh.
Being able to talk things over before the flight is one of the advantages of having a co-pilot. Discuss what-ifs and plan for ways to get out. It's a lot easier to think about it on the ground, and having determined your options makes you feel more comfortable in the air. Updating the plan in the air will help to keep you in the comfort zone. Even if you're flying alone, try to have this same kind of dialogue with yourself.
Ask yourself why you selected a route or altitude or alternate. Where will you go if you have to divert only midway into your flight? One word of caution. If you're carrying passengers, it's best not to go through this dialogue out loud. They usually don't like the idea of flying with pilots who talk to themselves. It goes without saying, you need to know how to operate the avionics and other instrumentation you'll depend on during the flight. Yet if you fly IFR and don't know the capabilities and limitations of the air traffic control system, you're flying with instruments and equipment you don't know how to use. We'll highlight these capabilities and limitations during this flight. It's about 180 nautical from Dulles to Bradford by the route that they're plotting. A lot can happen in 180 miles, especially this time of the year.
Let's check for some alternates just in case.
Right, with good instrument approaches.
Okay, well, let's see. We've got Dubois, about 40 nautical south. It's got an ILS. Although with that weather to the west, we may need something more easterly. Oh, well, there's always University Park.
Ah, yes, your old alma mater, as I recall.
Roar, Lions, roar. And even further east, there's Williamsport.
Yeah, well, looks like we're about ready to go then.
Almost. Now, what about weather updates along the route? Don't forget Bradford's non-towered.
Right, they have an ASOS.
And Cleveland Center controls their airspace, which means their radar may not show the nasty stuff we're trying to avoid.
You're right. We should plan on getting an update with Flight Watch before the descent. I'd say just after we switch to Cleveland Center, northwest of Phillipsburg.
Not many pilots pay attention to these little blue zipper lines that zigzag across charts. They show which center controls the airspace. And not many pilots can tell you where an approach facility's radar coverage ends and a center's begins. What does it matter whose airspace you're flying in? When you're concerned about weather, it can make a big difference because of the capabilities and limitations of different ATC facilities, as we'll see. Is it approach control radar? Center? Is it an area of fringe coverage? Or practically right under a radome? All of that can matter when you're looking for precipitation.
Okay, I'll just check in with the office and then give flight service another call.
I'm going to supervise the fueling. I'll see you out there.
Okay.
We're going to follow their flight and see how they utilize the resources in the cockpit and here on the ground to deal with the weather.
Great. Thanks. See you next time. Hey, what's the word?
Okay, the forecast for Bradford's still calling for 5 miles in haze and a 30% probability of 600 feet and 1 mile visibility in thunderstorms for our arrival time.
The en route forecast still the same?
Yeah, unstable air is the main factor. Getting some radar echoes just east of Cleveland and also some near Youngstown.
Okay, well, we're going to definitely want to check in for weather updates along the way then. Now, you sure you're comfortable going in this stuff?
Oh, sure. We'll get some help from the ground, and if we don't like it, we can always turn around or divert.
Okay, well, let's get going, because the longer we wait, the higher the tops get.
Their Beach Debonair is equipped with basic IFR equipment. No storm avoidance gear. The fact is, the only electronic radar or storm avoidance equipment most GA pilots have is right here on the ground, ATC. And it has some definite limitations.
Clear, prop!
The stakes are high. From 1982 to 1993, adverse weather was involved in over 1/4 of all aviation accidents. The pilots were responsible for 94% of those accidents. These aren't the kind of mishaps people walk away from either. If you discount wind accidents, about 75% of weather-related accidents involve fatalities, and most occur from March through September. Here are some other facts about weather accidents to keep in mind. 60% of weather accidents involve pilots with less than 1,000 hours. And if you think an IFR ticket makes you invulnerable, 43% of the pilots in weather accidents had them. Of course, not all weather-related accidents involve IMC. High winds cause lots of bent metal, so does carburetor ice. But here's one final fact for VFR and IFR pilots alike to keep in mind. The #1 cause of all weather-related fatal accidents results from pilots' attempted or continued VFR flight into instrument meteorological conditions, and 27% are IFR rated. Here at Dulles International Tower in the Radar Approach Control Facility, or RAPCON, there's some weather moving in right now. And that could make things interesting for our Debonair crew.
1826 Zulu Petrol.
How do you find out weather in the vicinity of the airport before you fly into it? You listen to ATIS, right? Well, you can also monitor approach control for a wider look at the local weather in marginal conditions.
Dulles Approach, this is US Air 1117, with you descending out of 7,000.
Roger, US Air 1117.
Listen to what's happening with incoming traffic. If they're being cleared for visual approaches, there's halfway decent visibility around the airport. But there could be wind challenges associated with thunderstorms or frontal activity.
US Air 1117, expect ILS runway 1 right approach.
US Air 1117, roger.
Dulles clearance delivery, Debonair 1588 Sierra with Oscar, instruments to Bradford, Pennsylvania.
1588 Sierra cleared to Bradford via the Capital 4 departure, Martinsburg as filed, squawk code 4645.
Roger, 1588 Sierra, the Capital 4 departure to Martinsburg as filed, and 4645 on the transponder.
88 Sierra, readback is correct. Contact ground point 9 when ready to taxi.
Roger, 88 Sierra. 1588 Sierra, taxi to runway 1 left via taxiway Zulu 1 and Zulu, full short of Alpha. 88 Sierra to runway 1 left via Zulu.
If you can deal with two frequencies at once, listening to departure control while taxiing can give you important information. Airliners do their utmost to avoid turbulence on departure, and if they're deviating, you should consider doing the same. If departure control isn't too busy, you can ask for information right after takeoff.
Dulles Tower 1588 Sierra, number 1 for departure at runway 1 left.
88 Sierra, runway 1 left, cleared for takeoff. Sierra, contact departure.
Over to departure, 88 Sierra. Dulles, departure, 1588 Sierra, climbing through 1,100 for 4,000.
1588 Sierra, radar contact, altimeter 29906.
This is the Dulles RAPCON radar room. If you're under departure control, you're being monitored in a facility like this. The screens the controllers are looking at are called Plan View Displays, or PVDs. They show the returns from a radar installation on or near the approach control's associated airport. PVDs are the controller's eyes. Most approach facilities have ASR-9 radar. ASR stands for Airport Surveillance Radar. ASR is designed for short-range coverage around an airport. Its primary purpose is tracking aircraft, but it can detect some precipitation too, and that can be a big help on days like today.
88 Sierra, climb and maintain 8,000.
88 Sierra, up to 8,000.
Every radar blip has an N number, a computer code number, an altitude, and a ground speed based on history. On these screens, controllers can see precipitation coming that's going to impact the facility. And based on what they see, they can change standard arrival and departure routes to work around the weather.
Delta 34 Heavy, when able, direct manning, then resume adjacent to arrival.
Ground-based radar has limitations. Among them, radar has a tough time penetrating heavy precipitation. That's because of attenuation, which leads to an incomplete radar return. What's behind the blind spot? Blue skies or tall, dark, and ugly ones? By putting together what a pilot reports seeing with what's displayed on a PVD, pilots and controllers can get a more complete picture.
Approach 88 Sierra with a request.
Go ahead, 88 Sierra.
Yeah, at some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
What's the matter? You don't like Center's radar?
Sure, but I like yours even more.
I'll sneak a peek for you before we hand off.
Why does the Debonair crew care whose radar they use? Because not all ATC radar is created equal. ASR-9, as I mentioned, was designed to track airplanes. But Approach Control's ASR-9, even with its limitations, is better at seeing weather than Center's long-range radar. And it's much more accurate in pinpointing areas of precipitation that may be associated with convective activity. Unlike more limited radar at en route centers, ASR-9 can detect 6 levels of precipitation that correspond with National Weather Service VIP for video integrator and processor levels. The higher the VIP level, the more precipitation and the greater possibility of turbulence associated with precipitation. Controllers can select any 2 levels for simultaneous viewing, so the display can be set optimally for the intensity of the activity. The lower levels are displayed as a light green area and the high levels as a brighter green. You can see the difference it makes in definition of the returns. General aviation pilots should avoid any precip area greater than level 2. Approach controllers can usually advise which levels they're painting, but remember 2 things. A level 2 shower can build to level 3 or greater within minutes. Turbulence is often encountered where no radar return is seen. When discussing radar returns, pilots can also ask the direction of movement and if the precipitation appears to be building or diminishing. The reason our pilots called approach control for a look at what's ahead is because they want as accurate a look at what's happening as possible.
At some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
And they won't be able to get that same level of definition from Center's radar. The fact is, there's a lot of information available from ATC. For example, pilot reports. This source can be extremely beneficial simply because a report of visually observed weather from an experienced pilot is going to be more accurate than that received from a radar system. When certain weather conditions exist or are forecast, controllers are required to solicit pilot reports on the weather. Pilot reports are forwarded to the local flight service station for dissemination. PIREPs are also retained near the controller's position, so the information can be given to potentially affected flights. Ask controllers for any PIREPs available for your route of flight. But rest assured, even if you don't ask, controllers will often provide general advisories of weather that could affect specific aircraft.
Baron 479er, there's an area of level 4 weather, 12 o'clock, 10 miles, 4 miles wide, moving east.
479er, can you give us vectors around the area?
479er, suggest heading of 170 degrees.
Turning to a heading of 170 degrees, 479er.
Controllers make traffic management look pretty simple, but it's a real high-wire act. And like any precision performance, flying, for example, it requires practice. All the controllers undergo recurrency training, duplicating situations of heavy traffic identical to what they see and deal with on a day like today.
Debonair 1588 Sierra, I'm showing scattered level 1 returns ahead from your 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, but no convective activity at this time. Connect Washington Center on 134.15. Have a good flight.
When you're en route and an approach controller tells you to contact Center, you talk to someone in a facility like this, an ARTCC, or Air Route Traffic Control Center. This is Washington Center in Leesburg, Virginia.
Washington Center, 1588 Sierra at 8,000 feet.
1588 Sierra, climb and maintain 10,000, 10,000, altimeter 29093.
An ARTCC is a lot bigger than an approach control facility. The radar is different, but the mission is the same. Keeping planes separated is number 1. Keeping them out of weather comes after that. Like the Dulles facility, the backbone of the system is the controller and his or her PVD. The radar at Center is an Air Route Surveillance Radar, or ARSR. Each controller has a slice of sky. Usually the section is defined by vertical and horizontal boundaries, that is, altitude as well as length and width. That's why you may be told to contact a different frequency when flying over the exact same area at different altitudes. Every plane being tracked is tagged. The data boxes are formatted a little differently than on approach control's radar. Each has a flight or N number assigned, and actual altitude, destination, and ground speed. The data box also indicates whether an aircraft is climbing or descending. To keep screen clutter down, Not all the aircraft are shown on PVDs.
Centurion 8902, descend and maintain 4,000.
Down to 4,000 for
Flight progress strips track each IFR flight the controller is handling. Unlike RAPCON's ASR, Center's Air Route Surveillance Radar can see out 200 to 250 miles, but it's more limited than approach radar for seeing weather.
Washington Center, this is Piper 73 Juliet.
Go ahead, 73 Juliet.
Are you showing any weather up ahead on our route?
Right now I'm getting some returns from that area, but it could be just an inversion. Our screens aren't too sharp when it comes to spotting precip. I do have some active returns, but they're not going to be a factor on your route.
On Center's PVD, level 1 or lighter precipitation is depicted by these slashing lines. Heavier weather is indicated by the little H's. It's not just that ARSR doesn't see weather very well. Sometimes it thinks it sees something that's not there. All radar is subject to certain errors. Radar waves can be bent by atmospheric phenomena besides rain, like temperature inversions. Temperature inversions can cause the radar to give false returns and make it think it's seeing precipitation. Controllers learn to interpret most of the false returns. Computer enhancements to the radar image have improved the ability to tune out ground clutter and atmospheric-related false returns, but it still occurs. These cross-hatched lines show the returns from two different sensors. If H's show up in these cross-hatched areas, it's probably actual weather. Some of this stuff you wouldn't want to go through in a battleship.
88 Sierra, contact Cleveland Center on 124.32.
1588 Sierra, Cleveland on 12432.
Controllers can adjust the brightness and superimpose the aircraft track and the weather radar returns simultaneously for easier viewing and vectoring, or advising of weather in relation to the aircraft. But unlike the 6 levels of contrast available with Approach Control's ASR-9 radar, Center's radar has only 2 levels.
Cleveland Center, Debonair 1588 Sierra with you at 10, that's 10,000.
Roger, 1588 Sierra, Bradford altimeter 2991. Be advised you've got an area of weather about 5 miles ahead.
Cleveland Center, this is Cessna 89er Tango with a request.
Go ahead, 89er Tango.
We're starting to get some pretty good rain here. Are you showing any significant weather between us and University Park?
89er Tango, our radar isn't very good for picking up weather, and that is in the fringe area of our coverage.
Roger, Center, 89er Tango.
I know what you're wondering. If controllers have all this great information, how come they can't share it with me when I'm in IMC trying to pick my way through weather? A couple of reasons. First, controllers aren't trained to be meteorologists. Another reason, the issue of liability. The FAA doesn't want to be held responsible in the event of a subsequent mishap. That's also why FAA forecasts are conservative and often filled with doom and gloom whenever there's a possibility of significant weather occurring along your route. If the forecast calls for clear skies and someone bends some metal after stumbling into unexpected IMC conditions, that forecast could be deemed partly responsible. That built-in negative bias in the forecast is another reason that you have to be proficient at interpreting weather data yourself. The same goes for telling you which way to turn when you're rocking in the clouds. Workload permitting, if controllers see you heading for convective activity, they'll often make suggestions on headings to take for weather avoidance. They'll give vectors through wide gaps in activity or to avoid the area completely. But to get more specific information, you have to know how to ask, because the way you frame your questions to ATC affects the level of information you receive.
Center, 26 Hotel, we see 2 cells, one at our 12 o'clock and one at our 2 o'clock, with what looks like about a 20-mile gap between them. Does your radar agree with that?
26 Hotel, I see the weather you're referring to, but the gap looks more like 12 miles.
If controllers aren't offering suggestions of their own, see if they'll agree with yours. Frame questions as statements that controllers can confirm or contradict based on what they see on their radar. But remember, a controller's primary responsibility is traffic separation, and that keeps them pretty busy, especially in bad weather, when you need help the most.
Center, this is United 1124
We'd like to deviate 20 degrees left for some buildups.
The combination of convective activity and deviation reports signals that a lot of pilots are going to start looking for smoother routes. If you need a deviation, ask for it. But obviously, controllers can't let planes go wherever they want. There's other traffic out there too. So for pilots, getting where you want to go as directly as possible may require a little horse trading.
Cleveland Center, 88 Sierra. We'd like to deviate 20 degrees west to get around to buildup.
Negative 88 Sierra. Conflicting traffic ahead. I'll need you in course or a right turn.
That won't work for 88 Sierra. We really need a left turn.
88 Sierra. If you want to go to the west side, I'll have to climb you to 12,000. We're about 10 miles for converging traffic.
Okay, we can live with that. 88 Sierra.
Okay, 88 Sierra, climb to and maintain 12,000. Suggest a heading of 340 degrees. Direct Keating when able. I'll bring you back down to 10,000 in about 5 minutes.
88 Sierra, out of 10 for 12,000 on a 340 heading. Direct Keating when able.
As a pilot, you have to be able to tell the controllers what you want. Are you looking for lower? Steering to your destination? Vectors around a cell. If you're unclear about what you want, or if the controller is unclear about what you want, he'll ask, "What are your intentions?" That means the ball is in your court. You have to decide what you're going to do. Of course, approach control and center aren't the only places you can go for weather information to help with your decision making. You can listen to ATIS broadcasts along the route. The reports may be up to an hour old, but they'll be updated more frequently if there are significant changes in the weather. For detailed weather information, FlightWatch provides the best coverage. You'll talk to briefers who've been specially trained to provide in-flight briefings. The briefers monitor a bank of radios, some linked to remote transmitters and receivers. So it's important to let the briefers know where you are and what frequency you're contacting them on and listening on. Even if you don't talk to a briefer, listening in on the frequency can help to keep you abreast of the weather situation.
You know, there are definitely some buildups up ahead. They don't look too bad right now.
Yeah, but you gotta wonder what's behind them.
Yeah, right. We'll have to start down about the time we get to Keating, and I'd like a better handle on the weather before we get into solid IFR. How about checking in with FlightWatch now?
Yeah, good idea. Center, 1588 Sierra, I'd like to leave the frequency to talk with FlightWatch.
1588 Sierra, Cleveland Center. That's approved. Report back on this frequency within 5 minutes.
Pittsburgh, FlightWatch, Beach 1588 Sierra, 15 miles south of Phillipsburg.
1588 Sierra, go ahead.
1588 Sierra at 10,000 en route for Bradford, Pennsylvania. What are you showing between Phillipsburg and Bradford?
88 Sierra, stand by.
FlightWatch, also known as En Route Flight Advisory Service, is designed to provide just what the name says, en route weather. It's provided through selected flight service stations and offers more abbreviated weather reports than you'll get from flight service briefers. It's available from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day at altitudes from 5,000 to 17,500 feet. State your position relative to a nearby airport or navigation facility on your initial call-up. This assures the briefer knows which transmitter to use to answer. And even more important, they know where you are relative to the weather on their radar screens.
88 Sierra, Bradford's latest automated observation is wind 200 at 5, visibility 4 in haze, 4,000 scattered, temperature 29er, dew point 20, altimeter 3002. The radar shows a line of level 4 to 5 showers about 50 west of Bradford, moving to the northeast at 15 knots. Between you and Bradford, I show a few level 1 cells, but that's about all at this time.
What's the movement on those cells, and are they building?
They're moving northeast and appear to be holding steady at level 1. The heavier precipitation is building, but it's still to the west.
Yeah. Do you have any pilot reports for the area?
I have one over Williamsport, but that won't do you much good. Nothing at all for Phillipsburg or Bradford.
File a PIREP, even if the briefer doesn't solicit one. Reports of good conditions can be just as useful as reports of a bad ride. Reports that don't agree with forecasts are especially useful.
88 Sierra is in and out of the tops at 10,000. Light turbulence in the tops, and temperature is about plus 10.
Thanks for the report. Is there anything else I can get you?
1588 Sierra, negative. That should do it. Cleveland Center, Beach 1588 Sierra is back on frequency.
Beach 1588 Sierra, roger. Pilot's discretion, descend and maintain 6,000. Bradford altimeter 29901.
It's been smooth sailing on top, but now they're about to descend into the clouds. What would you do?
Discretion to 6,000, 88 Sierra. Well, the weather's close, but it should hold out until after we've landed. Shall we tell them we're out at 10?
Hold on a second. Let's talk this through.
From this point, they'll be in the clouds, so this is a good time to go over the descent and approach plan. It's a lot easier to discuss options in the sunshine.
Look, I agree it looks as if we can make it. When we tell Center we're out of 10, let's confirm the weather situation with them, okay? Their radar is not as good as NEXRAD, but they might be showing something that FlightWatch can't see. They may also have a pilot report that hasn't gotten into the system.
Yeah, good thinking.
If they don't show anything, we should be all right. If this gets too rough, we'll head east to Williamsport. Cleveland Center, 1588 Sierra is leaving 10. That's 10,000 for 6,000. Are you showing any weather between us and Bradford?
1588 Sierra, roger out of 10,000. My radar is not the best for showing weather, sir. There's some heavy precipitation west of you. I don't show anything between you and Bradford. Citation jet departed Bradford about 10 minutes ago, headed west. He's deviating north around that weather and now is reporting light to occasionally moderate turbulence.
88 Sierra, roger. Let's see if we can pick up Bradford's ASOS.
Bradford Regional Airport, Bradford, Pennsylvania. Automated weather observation 183.
ASOS, or the Automated Surface Observation System, is another resource. It's becoming a common weather reporting system. But ASOS can report false readings in deteriorating or low conditions. Cloud height, sky cover, precipitation type, and visibility all have been seen very differently by man and machine. Monitor the ASOS from as far away as possible and update the report at least 3 times. Make notes so you see what the trend is. If the reports are in agreement, it's probably reliable. If not, the weather may be changing rapidly.
Thunderstorm. Information not available.
See if you can raise anyone on the ground at Bradford.
Human observers don't always have to be government employees, you know. A Unicom operator at your destination airport can be worth all the radars in the world.
88 Sierra, Bradford landing, runway 32. No reported traffic. It's not raining at the airport, but the sky is darker to the northwest. Additional information on ASOS 133.825.
Thank you, Bradford. We're about 15 minutes out. Center, Debonair 1588 Sierra, back with you.
Roger, 1588 Sierra.
Fortunately, the Debonair crew has plenty of options. They've got fuel, they've got VFR weather in back of them, and they've got available alternate airports. But who wants to divert? And even when it seems like you've got all the pieces of the puzzle, there's often a key piece of information your team on the ground can provide.
Center, has anyone else made an approach to Bradford recently?
Yes, sir. A Beech 1900 commuter about 15 minutes ago. They reported light turbulence on the approach.
Roger, thank you. We'll proceed.
88 Sierra, you're cleared for the approach of the Bradford Airport. Cancel with me on this frequency in the air or on the ground with Bradford.
What are the successful people doing? That's the key information you want to know in a situation like this. Has anyone gone that way recently? Nobody's been through there in the last half hour. They're all deviating north. Do you have any pilot reports for that route? Yes, sir. A Cessna Cardinal is on that route and reports light turbulence and moderate rain at 8,000 feet. Are they making it into Philadelphia? Not at Wings or Northeast Philadelphia, but they're landing at International. All these questions are aimed at finding out what are the pilots doing who are making it through. If you ask correctly, ATC will provide information they might not otherwise offer because of liability issues. And remember, the only thing certain about weather is that it will change. A successful deviation route could be better or worse when you get there. Remember, whatever the decision height or minimum descent altitude printed on the chart, you are free to make your own minimums more conservative. Down to minimums in IMC is not necessarily the best place for a low time or rusty instrument pilot.
1588 Sierra cleared for ILS 32 at Bradford.
Successful flights begin in the strategic pre-flight process. Here, pilots gather the information they'll need to make the go, no-go decisions critical to success. Get the big picture. Know the area weather situation. Get the details. Know what your departure, destination, and alternate airport weather is and will be. Have at least one alternate, more if the weather's questionable. Be willing to change your plans. Be adaptable. Once you're in the air, it's time for tactics. Use all your resources. Use your eyes. Where is the weather? What do the clouds look like? Would a change in route or altitude allow you to see better? Use your ears. Decrease radio frequency congestion. Listen to what's going on around you. Use your team on the ground, flight service, flight watch, air traffic control, and other pilots. And be willing to give information as well as receive it. Make PIREPs, even when the weather's good.
All right. Yeah. All right, just wanted to let you know everything went just fine. See you out front. Thanks, bye. They're going to meet us out front in 10 minutes. Boy, that was really easy.
Yeah, nothing to it, right?
Yeah. And everybody makes such a big deal out of weather flying.
Make no mistake about it. Weather flying is serious business. But it's also a team sport. You've got a whole crew to call on. But you are the captain, so get to know the team. Work the system. Ask the questions. Get the assistance you need. Take advantage of the services. And practice. File IFR, even in VFR weather. Get en route briefings. Monitor ATIS and ASOS along the way. That's what working with ATC is all about. Use your skills and capabilities, along with all the resources at your disposal, and you'll enjoy safer, more efficient instrument flying.
This video is a new way of giving safety information to pilots across the nation. We think it's a unique way to spread the safety message. And safety is very important to all of us. AOPA was founded in 1939 to make flying safer, more affordable, and more fun. A decade later, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation was established.
The AOPA Air Safety Foundation was created for one purpose. That's to make general aviation easier and safer for all pilots. And we're proud to have played a part in reducing general aviation accidents by nearly 75%. We do this in a variety of means that includes research, safety seminars, and producing publications like this one. And all of this is funded by contributions from pilots like yourself.
Once you're finished with this tape, please pass it along to another pilot to share this safety information. And to help us and the FAA with more safety projects like this one, please fill out the survey card that came with this video. If you'd like to know more about AOPA or the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, please call us or visit our website. And safe flying.